Chapter 28, Future Passive, Future Perfect, and the verb oida. Charis pistos. Hellenica, Euripides, very famous contemporary of Sophocles, in fact dying the same year. Euripides was another of the three great Greek tragedy writers. Of the 95 plays believed to be written by him, only 18 survive to the present day. Although a frequent target of the comedian Aristophanes, Euripides' works speak for themselves. Alcestis, Medea, especially Medea, Electra, and the Bacchae, the wailers, the mourners. In 2005, more fragments of Euripides' works were discovered by infrared technology in papyrus fragments from the great Egyptian archaeological treasure trove of Oxyrhynchus. Key concepts, Chapter 28, the future passive, the sixth principal part. The future perfect is a compound verb form, and oida, an irregular verb. But there's a reason why we find it here in Chapter 28, as I'll explain later. First, let's look at the future passive, stem and indicative. Okay? Don't confuse future passive with future perfect. Future passive translation, I will be taught at some point in the future. The future perfect is just what it sounds. It's a future and a perfect. So, I will have taught in the active. I will have been taught at some point in the future, right? The sixth principal part of the Greek verb is the aorist passive stem. Paidoio, paidoiso, epaidoisa, pepaidoika, pepaidoimai, epaidoithein. Last chapter, we learned that sixth principal part is used to form the aorist passive. It is also used to form the future passive. Here, paidoithesomai. Okay, so there's no augment because it's future. The theta is the sign of the passive voice. The sigma is the sign of the future tense. And of course, because we're dealing with a passive here, we have to use middle passive endings. Primary middle passive endings, mai, sai, tai, methus, the, untai. Okay, so here we are combining things that we've all had. So everything in gray that you see here is something you've already had. Stem, sign of passive, let me get my laser pointer, sign of passive, sign of future, active primary endings, mai, sai, tai, methus, the, untai. So, we're expecting the usual quirk in the second singular. There it is. Paidoithesai, or thesei, either one. The conjugation of the future passive indicative. Paidoithesomai, paidoithesai, paidoithesetai, paidoithesomatha, paidoithesesthe, paidoithesantai. Translation, I shall be taught, you will be taught, he will be taught in the future. This will be passive. Infinitive and participles of the future passive. Again, the infinitive presents only a new combination of old information. So, let's walk through it. What's the stem? Paidoi, plus the sign of the passive, the, se, sthai, sthai. This is a common middle passive infinitive ending, sthai, right? So we have paidoithesesthai, to be going to be taught, to be about to be taught. The same is true with the future passive. Stem, sign of the passive, future, connecting vowel, plus this menos, mene, menon ending gives us paidoithe summonos, summone, summonon, going to, about to, be taught. Now the future perfect, active and middle passive. The future perfect is both an odd and rare form in Greek. Quite frankly, even the Greeks tried to avoid it. But here is what it looks like. We are going to teach recognition only. So what is this? Well, this is the perfect active participle. Here it happens to be in the feminine. But it be pepaidoi kos, pepaidoi quia, pepaidoi kus. And then we combine it with a future indicative of I, me. Here it's third person singular. Pepaidoi quia estai. This is a woman talking. By this time tomorrow, I shall have taught the students. She will have taught. Third person. The form I, me adjusts according to the person. We keep the participle in the nominative. Okay? So let's look at some forms. What form is this? Pepaidoi kos esomai. First singular, future, perfect, active, indicative. I will have taught. What form is this? Well, look at the participle and look at the person of the verb. First plural, future perfect, active indicative. We, referring to men here, because it's a masculine participle, we shall have taught. What form is this? Oh, I have it out of order. Pepaidoi quii, notice this is feminine, plural, nominative. Esontai, third plural, future indicative of I, me. Right? They will have taught, referring to a bunch of women. The future perfect can also occur in the middle passive, and it is formed in a similar manner. Instead of the active participle, though, here we are using the middle passive participle. This does not change. The future of I, me does not change. We always use that. But the participle now is passive. Here it happens to be masculine, nominative, singular. So I would translate this, by this time tomorrow, I shall have been taught. What form is this? Pepaidoi menai esesthe. Well, it's feminine, right? Menai, it's plural, and this is the second plural. So, second plural, future perfect, middle passive indicative. You women shall have been taught. What form is this? Now don't panic. Topaidion matches this neuter participle. Third singular, future. So, third singular, future perfect, middle passive indicative, neuter. The little child will have been taught. In the future, this will be a complete action. Future perfect. Again, don't confuse it with future passive. Next, we go on with the verb oida. Oida is the irregular verb par excellence. General observations about oida. You have the conjugation of oida in your textbook. Oida occurs in this chapter for this reason. Okay, it is always active in meaning, so you would never say, I was known. The verb oida means to know in a head knowledge kind of way. Okay, always active in meaning and only occurs in the perfect, but we translate the perfect like a present. It occurs in the pluperfect, but we translate the pluperfect like an imperfect. And it occurs in the future perfect, but we translate that like a future. So, it's kind of like a deponent verb. It's just a little bit different, but that's why it shows up here in chapter 28. Now that we've learned the perfect and the pluperfect and the future perfect, then we can put oida in here. All right. So, note similarities to the form of I, me. In your note sheet, you see a comparison in chapter 28 between the forms of I, me and the forms of oida. There are some that are completely identical, like the second singular imperative iste. So you have to rely on context to understand whether it means be or no. Some forms are very similar. For example, the third plural indicative esan versus esan. But the only difference is here where we have this iota subscript hanging on to the eta. This would be the form of oida. This would be the form of I, me. See, they're kind of color-coded, okay? You can also compare the perfect participle of oida and horao. So, idon versus idon, right? Or idos versus idos. So, seeing or knowing, okay? But look in your textbook or look on the note sheet to see the full conjugation of oida, the verb to know. Big thing, translate it like a present or an imperfect or a future. Okay, even though in form they are perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect. I usually end each lesson with a Bible passage. This is from Matthew. I'm sorry, it's not. It's from Galatians 2:16. I have to change that. There's a little mistake there. Aidotes dehate uk dekaiutai anthropos ex ergon nomu an me dia pisteos Jesu Christu hati ex ergon nomu u dikaiothesetai pasasarx. Okay, so knowing, aidotes, knowing. Hati means that very often in the Bible. So, knowing that not will he be justified or made righteous, a man, out of works of law, but if only, or except, through faith in Christ Jesus. Okay? Because from works of the law, udikaiothesetai, do you see the theta, passive, sigma, future, so will be made righteous all flesh. All flesh will not be made righteous from works of the law. I just want to point out that this combination of dia pistos, the New Testament is very consistent in this. Dia can take an accusative, and then it means on account of or because of. But when it comes to faith, it always uses the genitive, dia pisteos, through faith. Faith is the channel God uses to give us his eternal blessings. But we never say that we are saved because of our faith. That turns faith into a work of the law, a work of man. So the Bible's pretty consistent on this. Here's some theology in grammar. We are saved by grace through faith, not because of faith. Speed drills. Oida tous anthropos. I know the man. Oista tous anthropos. I know the men. Oida tous anthropos. He knows the men. Ismen tous anthropos. We know the men. Anthropoi esmen. We are men. So here the difference between oida and I me, okay, very similar verb forms. We are men. Iste tous anthropos. You know the men. Anthropoi este. You, plural, are men. Issasi tous anthropos. They know the men. Isthetin aletheia. Know the truth. Imperative here. Know the truth. Iste alethes. Aha. Same form, but this is one of those duplicates. This is an adjective. So, know true? No. Be true. So context alone tells us that this is the imperative I me, and this is the imperative of oida. Be true. Adjective. Aisomai ten alethaian. I knew the truth. Here we have the imperfect. Or I will know the truth. I'm sorry, future. Esomai alethes. I will be true. Aisesta ten alethaian. You will know the truth. Spoido ten alethaian idenai. I am eager to know the truth. Spoido alethes ainai. Difference between these two infinitives. I am eager to be true. Tihe aletheia. What is truth? Legai auto ha Pilatus, tiestin aletheia. Pilate said to him, what is truth? Aiseste hetis he aletheia esten. You will know what the truth is. You will know, relative pronoun here, what the truth is. It's an indirect question, really. Aiseste ten alethaian hetis estin. Basically the same sentence, a little different word order. You will know the truth, what it is. Tines hoi anthropoi. Who are the men? Who are the men? Oida tous anthropos hoi tenesaisen. I know the men, who they are. Pathen hoi anthropoi pempoimenoi eisen. Okay, so here we have that compound form of the perfect passive, right? From where have the men been sent? This is from Pempo. From where have the men been sent? Oida tous anthropos hopathen pempoimenoi eisen. I know the men from where they have been sent. Oida hopathen hoi anthropoi pepoimenoi eisen. I know from where the men have been sent. And our last one, oida hoi anthropoi hopathen pempoimenoi essantai. Now here is the future perfect passive. We have our perfect passive participle plus our form of I, me in the future. I know the men from where they will have been sent. From where they will have been sent. So this is present, this is future, this doesn't change. Perfect passive, future perfect passive. Totelas. That brings us to the end of chapter 28. The future passive, the future perfect, and forms of oida.